The film Avengers Initiative, showcasing the origin story of the Avengers. Set in the 2000s, the movie tells an origin story that is very different than the previous Avenger movies tell us. We're introduced to Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson, the founder of the Avengers. It all begins with Bruce Banner, played by David Yost, turning into the Hulk after a failed super soldier serum experiment and going on a rampage. General Ross plans to take down the Hulk, but things are dire, so Nick Fury recruits enhanced individuals from across the globe to form a team specifically meant to stop the Hulk. The lineup is a bit of a weird one, made out of a couple unknowns, less prominent characters as well as a villain. Mockingbird is played by Dixie Lynn, who's a brilliant SHIELD biologist turned elite field agent. Quicksilver is played by Ross Lynch and is said to be the son of Magneto. He has a younger sister named Wanda, played by Sadie Sink. Magneto had abandoned Pietro and Wanda after their human mother, after finding out Pietro and Wanda were a product of a genetic experiment by a being called the High Evolutionary. The rest of the team got the powers from offshoots of the super soldier serum. Wonder Man is played by Nathan Fillion and was experimented on. Goliath is played by John Boyega, but is killed by the main villain, and Taskmaster is played by Andrew Garfield. In this movie, the Avengers would team up with Ross and his anti-Hulk group, the Thunderbolts, which include Whiplash, played by Mickey Rourke, Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson, Bullseye, played by Wilson Bethel, and Hawkeye, played by Paul Walker. Later in the film, it was revealed that the Hulk's rampage was set off by the leader, and all of Ross's agents were a part of the leader's group, including Taskmaster. The Hulk managed to stay in control during the Avengers to take down the Thunderbolts, but in the climax, Black Widow and Hawkeye joins the Avengers. The Avengers are officially formed. Hydra then forms again after the death of the Red Skull. So, 8 years later, Iron Man will be the second film. It will basically be identical to the first Iron Man film, except this will do also have public heroes, but Asa Butterfield will play Tony Stark, Pepper Potts, played by Emma Stone, James Rhodes, played by Michael B. Jordan, and Obadiah Stane, aka Ironmonger, played by Bryan Cranston. The third film of the Marvel Extended Cinematic Universe is The Amazing Spider-Man, starring Grant Gustin as 16-year-old Peter Parker, going through his origin story with a story being exactly the same as 2002, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man film, but the cast being a little different with Anya Sophia Robb as Gwen Stacy, Tyler Hoechlin as Flash Thompson, Sebastian Stan as Harry Osborn, Uncle Ben played by Mark Ruffalo, and Aunt May played by Sally Field. However, Oscar Isaac played the Green Goblin. Peter wears the homemade Tom Holland suit from Homecoming, at least for now. At the end of the film, it shows J. Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons, on the Daily Bugle, calling Spider-Man a masked menace. A few months later would be the release of X-Men, lifting the story directly from the first X-Men movie, but the cast being a little different, with Cyclops played by Brenton Thwaites, Jean Grey played by Emma Watson, Gambit played by Channing Tatum, Rogue played by Mary Elizabeth Winston, Jubilee played by Layla Jenner, Beast played by David Tennant, Professor X played by Mark Strong, and Storm played by Violet Myers. Although I guess the characters would also just be a few years older, the X-Men and the mutants are known to the public as Xavier and the X-Men had prevented a war that was 2 years before the events of the Avengers Initiative film. Beyond that, Iceman would be added to the roster, played by Josh Hutcherson, and the team would wear their suits from the Last Stand movie, though that will be more and more colorful over time. Magneto and the Brotherhood of Mutants will be the main villains. Prior to the MCU, the big three of Marvel was Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk, so I'll be writing off 2007 by completing that set in the first Wolverine movie called The Wolverine, played by Daniel Radcliffe. You would see Logan's origin story, born in James Howlett in the 1800s, growing alongside his brother Victor Creed, played by Alan Richardson, living through war after war. As the Asian halted, he was put through the Weapon X program in the 1950s. From there, Logan was used as a black ops secret weapon by the Canadian government for decades alongside his brother. The film follows tensions throughout the 20th century between the US and Russia, leading to the climax in the 1990s where Wolverine and his Black Ops team face off against his Russian equivalent Omega Red. As they defeat him, Sabretooth turns on his brother as a way to escape, shooting him with an adamantium bullet, leaving him in the Canadian wilderness. Believed dead, he regresses to basic instincts, and in the following 2 decades develops a new personality calling himself Logan. Having managed to put together a nice life for himself, in the movie ends with Logan being approached by Rogue and Cyclops, while the end credits shows Sabretooth still out there. In 2008, the next film will be Fantastic Four. Reed Richards, played by John Krasinski, Sue Storm, played by Emily Blunt, Johnny Storm, played by Joe Keery, Ben Grimm, played by David Harbour, and Victor Von Doom, played by Robert Downey Jr. A lot more earlier. The film will be the exact same as the 2005 and 2004 film, but it will be a lot better as well, with the story focusing on the backstory of Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Doom as become mortal enemies. There would obviously be a big family dynamic with Reed and Sue. They would also be married, but Reed will be the clear focus. And then in later movies, we'll focus on the other members. In the end credits, it will show the Fantastic Four being encountered by Nick Fury. 2 months later begins with the Spectacular Spider-Man, showing a 17-year-old Peter Parker as he becomes a sophomore, with story elements mostly taken from Spider-Man 2, including Dr. Octopus, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. As the main villain during 1 year between these movies, Spider-Man faced off against the likes of the Shocker, the Lizard, and the Vulture, and a few others. The movie would also make references to all the other Marvel movies that came out in between. Specifically, J. Jonah Jameson blaming Spider-Man for these villains. Gwen Stacy would survive this movie for now, and Black Cat, played by Sydney Sweeney, would be introduced. In 2007, we'll have another 3 releases, including The Incredible Hulk, giving David Yost a solo movie of his own as Bruce Banner. Before the next film he's in, well, he learns to control his Hulk side and set up I'm Always Angry moment. We would actually have a big context for that, while the villain will be the leader. Captain America the First Avenger will be identical to the real movie, with one exception of the inclusion of James Howlett as one of the Howling Commandos, since in the first X-Men movie, his role was absent in the film, plus Daniel Day Kim's Namor and Logan Lerman's Jim Hammond's Human Torch also appearing in this film, helping Captain America against Hydra. Which brings us X-Men Uncanny, which would be similar story to the real X2, but with more colorful costumes, additional inclusion of Buffer Trask and Sentinels, who the X-Men and Brotherhood Mutants team up against, including now in Brotherhood Mutants, would be Scarlet Witch, played by Sadie Sink, and an original Avenger member, Quicksilver, still played by Ross Lynch. Quicksilver only joined the Brotherhood Mutants to protect his sister. Both of them are the children of Magneto, and would end up leaving the Brotherhood at the end of the movie, which will become important very soon. Wolverine would not be the main character here, instead Cyclops would take the lead. While the likes of Nightcrawler, played by Logan Lerman, Colossus, played by Tom Harper, Angel, played by Dawson Montgomery, and Kitty Pryde, played by Maya Hawke, will join the X-Men. Finally, for the end of Phase 1, we get to 2010 in The Avengers, which both Wonder Woman and Mockingbird retiring in the beginning of the movie. The film can be a bit similar to the real version, but with some big changes like Hawkeye, Hulk, Quicksilver, Taskmaster, and Black Widow already being Avengers members from the Avenger Initiative movie. No duel, since there hasn't been a duel film yet. Scarlet Witch and Spider-Man now join the Avengers just so they can confirm now 100% that the Avengers is going to succeed. Pietro is now 14 years old, Bruce is now 40, Hawkeye is 37, Taskmaster is around 25 to 26, and Black Widow is 26, while the other is younger than the MCU counterparts has ever been, but Pietro and Wanda are a lot younger than the rest of the team. However, they are more experienced than the other members aside from Captain America in terms of superheroics. So the original team with the new Avengers dynamic would be a bit different, maybe with more aligned with the comics. The overall story would be maybe very similar to the real Avengers, but this time S.H.I.E.L.D. has a lot more candidates. The reason it ended up being these 7 is location of the invasion just simply being New York City. The X-Men were dealing with their own, just simply couldn't get there fast enough, but also we'll soon learn that Fantastic Four were not even in this dimension because there wasn't a Thor movie. We would have to change the villain. The main villain would be Red Skull, and at the end of the movie, he would die.